Mates time. Welcome back. Today's episode, we will be revisiting Harry and the Hendersons. So grab your camping gear and get ready for another fun-filled episode. Stay tuned.
Hey everybody, it's Brian.
And Christina.
And joining us once again is the amazing Chris from Alien Zoo. Chris, welcome back.
Welcome back, Chris. Yay!
Hello. Thanks for having me again.
So Chris is from Alien Zoo. He has a fantastic podcast. Chris, tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Well, my podcast, Alien Zoo, every episode I do a deep dive into a specific cryptid, which in cryptozoology terms, a cryptid is an undiscovered animal, such as Mothman, Chupacabra, Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster. So every episode I delve into one of those guys. It's a lot of fun.
Fantastic.
And super appropriate for Harry and the Hendersons.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yes.
For sure.
So 1987, this movie came out. Let's talk about then, Christina.
So I don't remember the first time I watched Harry and the Hendersons. I remember one thing when I'm thinking about Harry and the Hendersons was it was the saddest ending. I remember thinking it was the saddest ending of a movie I had seen. Probably, maybe not ever, but I remember it making me cry. In fact, I remember having a joke with one of my friends, and I used to say, "Don't make me Harry and the Hendersons, you." Meaning make you go away in like an awful, I hate you kind of way. So it had an impact on me in that way. But I enjoyed it. I liked it a lot. It's a great movie. It was a great movie.
Huh. I remember seeing this with my mom's then boyfriend, Daryl. And what happened was we were going to go to the movies, and I wanted to see... And so, Chris, and to some of the listeners here, like, I was a very sort of dramatic kid. I liked
Believe it or not.
I liked a lot of dramatic movies growing up. I really liked... I felt older than I was always, and I always wanted to see like the dramatic movies, the Oscar-nominated, sagas and the sprawling dramas and all that. And I don't really know why. I think I had a pretty dramatic childhood. Maybe I liked knowing the drama on screen would end and whatever. But I remember wanting to see broadcast news, and because it was rated R, my mother's boyfriend didn't feel comfortable, and he's like, "Well, what else?" And I'm like, "Oh God!" I'm like, "Well, Harry and the Hendersons. I mean, it's safe, it's PG." And I remember, so this started at the movie theater, and I remember being like, "Oh my God, this is such a little kids movie. This is a little kids movie. It's cheesy," and I didn't really care for it. And it was like, but I think we talked about this before. When you're young, when you're a teenager, everything's lame. So it's like, So I did want to revisit this when we talked about it, because I was like, I remember not liking it, but maybe now that I'm an adult, I can appreciate it in some different ways. So that's where I'm at. How about you?
Well, when this first came out in 87, I wasn't alive yet. And it's interesting because Harry...
He's a smidge younger than us.
A little bit.
Just a smidge.
It's funny because Harry and the Hendersons, being in what I call an amateur Bigfoot researcher, Harry and the Hendersons seems like a movie that would be made for me. But I didn't watch it for the first time until I was in college.
Oh, interesting.
And then I thought it was great. Again, I was in college, so my mind had to pick away at certain things at Harry and the Hendersons. I couldn't completely enjoy it, as I would probably as a kid.
Sure.
But
Chris went to film school.
Oh yes, I did.
Yes.
I did.
Were you avoiding seeing it?
It was just one of those movies that I just never got around to seeing. It was always on my list of movies to see, and I just never did until I came across it in college. I'm like, you know what? Now's the day. I gotta watch this. And I remember really, really enjoying it my first time seeing it.
Yeah.
I really do.
All right. So as we do shallow dive time, we're just going to jump in. No rhyme or reason. Christina, what grabbed you this time around?
The first thing that grabbed me this time around.
And by the way, I'm only laughing because Christina's face makes me, your facial expression right now is
laugh.
No, your facial expression you do make me laugh very easily. But we have not talked about this.
No,
I don't know if you loved it or thought it was sad all over again or what. So go ahead. But your facial expression right now is funny.
I will tell you, the first thing that grabbed me was one of the first scenes. They're driving down the road and he's speeding.
Yeah.
And it's a big issue. The kids are telling him to slow down. The wife is telling him to slow down. And not one of them are wearing seatbelts.
I noticed that.
Not one.
I noticed
and
that
the kids are going around. He actually reaches in the back, and there's like a gun back there. Like, it was just very like, whoa, like something you would not see in today's movies.
No, that's right.
At all.
He is the worst. I have this in my notes later on. I think he's a horrible movie driver. John Lithgow.
Totally.
I don't know if it's John Lithgow or the character or both, a little of both, but he's not. It's not okay. The way he looks at street signs when he's driving by them, street signs don't work like that. Like he's turning his whole body to look at the street sign he just went past. It's like, that's not how eyes work.
Right.
That's not how vision works. Yeah. You drive past a sign, you don't look back. The sign isn't turning with you as you're flying down the road to see what it said. When you drive past a sign, you miss the sign. Right.
Exactly.
It really bothered me.
Yeah. Clearly. You seem quite passionate about it.
Because he's John Lithgow. He's won an Oscar, right, for Garp. But it's like he is an acclaimed
he's
actor.
A great actor.
He should have known better. Some of his choice, it doesn't, you know what?
But it was back, I mean, was it one of his first movies?
Oh, do not.
No? Okay.
It was not.
It was definitely not?
I have not looked him up, but I'm not.
Okay.
No.
Just for the record,
you don't lead. All right, fine.
Not. Okay, so anyway, so that was the first thing that struck out to me in terms of back then versus now. And it's funny that I noticed it like right away too. It was like I don't know. I would have noticed it back then.
Right.
I guess as a responsible human being, I noticed it. I don't know, where do you want to go with this? There's a few things that I noticed about this movie. One was it happened pretty quickly. For some reason I was thinking that they were in the woods for a lot longer and they were actually like camping when they came across them or something. Like, my memory of the movie wasn't that great. But they come across him pretty quickly. That was pretty funny with them trying to get him on the car and like that. There were a lot of like sight gags that were funny. Yes. The feet. Yeah. All of that. I thought it was funny that they even wanted to bring him back. I loved that he thought he was dead like twice. It's like he's definitely dead. And just the not seeing his face right away was really fun. Like, what is he going to look like? That sort of thing. So I thought that was fun. And I was surprised how the amount of time that Harry spent at the house was so short before he left. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, and even Matt said something to me. He's like, I thought he was like living there like the whole movie.
That's what I thought as well. I thought Harry and the
like
Hendersons.
12 hours or something, right?
I thought it was a movie of Bigfoot in a house.
Yes.
That was my my remembrance of it.
Absolutely, me too.
Completely. So many things that you said. I think this movie does a great job. And if I was a little kid, like, you get your money's worth with Harry. He, to your point, he is shown right away. It's not like the Hulk, where like you have to wait 45 minutes from turning to Hulk. He is met, I think, within 7 minutes of the movie. They hit him with the car. You see an amazing, talk about sight gags, when they slam the brakes and he goes flying off the roof. Oh, yeah. You see his entire body. Yes. And it's such a cool shot. And I was like, if I was a kid, I would be loving every second of this. And he is in, I would say, 88% of this movie, almost every scene.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, like now as an adult, I was like, wow, I didn't appreciate it then at all, but I really appreciate it now because so many movies, even E.T., like, well, they held back on like seeing the full view or like, just little hints of things of what he might look like.
Just
and
his hand
yeah, exactly. And but this just they put it all out there really fast. So and I think it's smart because you really get a sense of like how big this creature is and what you're dealing with. And I think so. To that movie's credit, I think it does a great job establishing that.
Oh yes, and when they first showed him they first showed the Bigfoot, not as a Bigfoot, but just as an animal that they hit. When they first hit him, you can't really tell. You know what it is, but you can't. They didn't really show its face or anything. And then once the hand turns, that little hand revealing, like, this isn't a bear or anything. That was really well done.
That was well done.
And it's funny that you mentioned that it is true that it really worked that Bigfoot showed up within the first couple minutes of the movies, but when this movie first came out, it did horrible in the box office. And that's because the trailers that were released didn't show Bigfoot at all, didn't hint to Bigfoot at all, so people didn't know it was a movie about Bigfoot. They actually had to change the title to Bigfoot and the Hendersons when it first came out to get people interested.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that.
It became, but it did become a hit on like VHS.
Oh yeah,
because they made a TV show out of it, and it's the same actor who plays Harry is in the show. I didn't realize that. I didn't watch the trailer. I don't remember how it was done. That's pretty cool. I will say I laughed. I mentioned in the beginning where John Lithgow approaches the hit Harry and he's going up to him very slowly and the little kid yells, "Shoot it!" And he jumps a mile. Now, and to balance that off, I will say Melinda Dillon is not one of my favorite actresses. I find she plays the wife in this movie. And I think
was also the mother in
Close Encounters.
Oh
yeah, that's right. I liked her in it. Actually, I did like her in that.
Okay.
She was also the mother in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I felt she was doing a little bit of a Goldie Hawn impression in this movie.
Interesting.
And I didn't really like it. Also, did anyone else pick up the number of times she said George?
No.
Come on. Every single sentence, every line of dialogue, she said had the name George.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even know this.
George.
No kidding.
George. I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna kill her.
So what was his name?
George is John Lithgow's character. And yeah, but I think in terms of I think there were some bizarre acting choices in this movie. Now, I will say, this is the spoiler of this, I actually liked it. I liked it a lot more than I did then. I liked it more now. I appreciated a lot of the sentiments. You're exactly right, you guys, about like that him being in the house, like he was just so destructive in such a short period of time, and and I did appreciate. I was like, wow, they're kind of going for a sense of realism.
Sure,
like he's not going to know his way around the house. He's going to make himself fit into things by breaking through ceilings and falling through floors and all that kind of stuff. But I think like some of the acting was just a little strange. They were playing it very broad, but then there were these very big dramatic moments with John Lithgow being like, "It matters to me," like he's like really playing for like the cheap seats, and like he's like playing Shakespeare. Like it's so dramatic, and then there's a lot of like the villain with all the guns, and he played it very serious. I don't know. So I think every time I wanted to like go with the happy flow of this movie, it got sort of like needlessly not dramatic, but just like dark.
Yes. So I do remember even back when I first saw it that the one part that turned me off about the whole movie was this like relationship that George had with his father.
Oh yeah.
And that, like, I didn't think it was necessary. Like, that did not need to be his father. That could have been just his boss. And the, making fun of his, like, all of a sudden he's an artist. He wants to be an artist. Like, what? Where did that come from? Like, why is this part of the story? So it was not necessary. I don't know if it was originally written in a bigger, like, as a bigger part, that whole side story. not necessary at all.
No, it definitely wasn't, because you only see the father, at the shop.
Right.
That's it. So he doesn't really make any other appearance.
And I get it. Like, okay, he's a hunter, and he works in a gun shop, and he's obviously teaching his child how to hunt, and I get that whole, like, little message. But, yeah, it didn't need to be his father.
I agree with that.
And that was, I loved those scenes with Harry finding the dead animals in the house and burying him in the backyard.
Yeah.
Like, that was really great. And I like that. I like the full circle part of it when he opens up the closet and all the animals fall out, and then George helps to bury them. Like, I like that whole tie-up.
Right.
That was really cute. That was fun. And I have to say, like, I laughed so much at George. I mean, oh my God, now you got to go at Harry and his expressions.
Yeah.
And I was like, it was just made me laugh so much, some of his expressions. And just how cute he was, and like watching the TV and laughing.
So
yeah, that's right.
I respectfully disagree with the laughing. I thought he sounded like Eddie Murphy. I thought he sounded like he had this like human. He had a human laugh.
Well, he's sort of human though.
Chris,
he's a Bigfoot.
Oh wow, that's.
Yeah.
What was your take on his laugh?
So Chris is an expert here. So
yeah, well,
he's had interviews. Yeah. So am I wrong? Is he not?
Is that a realistic?
It all depends on what you believe on this entity known as Bigfoot. I mean, if you believe that he's more of an animal type creature, yeah, I can see how the laughing would be a little disturbing. Mm-hmm. But if you believe he's, maybe on the realm of humanity, you can see how maybe that could work.
In my defense, at the end of the movie, he does speak a word.
What's the word?
At the very end.
Which I did not like.
I didn't really love it either.
I did not like that.
But he did at the very... What did he say? Did he say, like, goodbye?
I wanted to say goodbye, but it was something to George.
Something to George at the very end, and he's like, what? He speaks? So that... that's sort of like my defense.
Humanizes him.
Humanizes him a little bit.
Oh my God! What word did he say?
I don't know. We'll have to look at it. And honestly, so my memory was a little bit off on this too, because I thought that the scene when he was like, "I don't want you anymore. Go away. Get out of here."
Yeah.
I thought it ended there.
Oh.
I remember it ending there. And I remember all the little Bigfoots and stuff going with him.
Yeah.
But I truly felt like that was the end, and that's how it was like all done. I was so happy to see that there was like a little more to it. And I'm like, oh, okay, it actually was kind of a happier ending. Because my daughter, Emily, I was trying to get her to watch it. She's not a big movie watcher. I don't know where that came from. And I'm like, this is going to be a good one. It's funny. Let's just watch it as a family, blah, blah, blah. She watched a few minutes of it and she left. Mm-hmm. But then I was a little bit nervous because she does not like unhappy endings at all. Oh. And I'm like, she's going to hate this movie at the end of it, but I'm not going to tell her about it.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, I'm like, oh, it actually wasn't as bad as I thought.
Yeah.
But I had a completely different remembrance of that
Interesting.
ending.
Same for me. Yeah.
Oh, really?
I totally thought that was the end. Yeah. That, like, just go. It's
and then that was it.
Yeah.
Credits roll.
There is a very sweet, similarly, there's a very sweet scene that I have to be honest, I was like a little emotional. And when Harry sees George on all the TVs, and he keeps grabbing him to like hug the TV, and he's walking away and it disconnects, and he grabs another TV and it disconnects. Like, that was done really well.
That was done
And I was like,
really
this is like, it's kind of tugging at the heartstrings effectively. Yeah, I thought it was very sweet.
Agreed.
Anything else? What did we really like? We're on a positive stretch. I think we should see it through before we maybe turn to things that could be better.
The dark side.
I absolutely loved the performance the actor gave who was in the Bigfoot suit, who played Harry.
Oh, yeah.
I thought, I mean, to find that this was the same actor who, his name is Kevin Peter Hall. Mm-hmm. He's an 8-foot actor.
Oh, my.
And John Lithgow isn't short at 6'4", but at 8 feet. And he was the same guy who played the Predator across from Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh, yeah.
Same guy. And I thought he did really well in that suit. I'm sure it must have been really difficult to act in that sort of...
I would say so, too.
I loved the line, even though it's... So, an example of like great dialogue delivered poorly. Do you remember when the mother says the roast is in a shallow, unmarked grave?
Yes. Yes.
But
Great
she
line.
said,
Agreed.
yeah, but it was like a throwaway. Like she
Yeah.
didn't sell that line. It's a funny line. And let's see.
I liked the
Positive.
meeting when Don Amici,
Yeah.
when he meets
Harry.
Harry.
Yeah.
I took a little long. Like I think I would have noticed like this big hairy thing next to me. I think it took a little long, but like that pure joy in his face when he saw him. I believed that he was searching for him his whole life and gave up. And then all of a sudden, like his dream just came true. Like I really, I saw the emotion in him.
Absolutely.
I thought that was a really sweet scene.
I loved Lainey Kazan, the neighbor, the crazy.
Oh, I love her. She's
She kind
one of my
of
favorite.
reminded me of my mom.
Oh, I was just going. Dee, I am so sorry. I was just going to say that same exact thing. That actress really does remind me of your mother, and she reminded me of her in Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Yeah. She in her hair back then. I think my mom's hair was maybe not too dissimilar,
but she's good.
She's really funny in it.
I wish she was in it more.
Yeah. I wrote she's fantastic. How would the story have played out if her character was married to John Lithgow?
Oh,
like that would have just been like a little more entertaining. Maybe it would have benefited from a little more broad comedy in this movie, a little bit, like some broad reactions. I thought she was great. Don Amici says, you mentioned Don Amici, he was great in it, and he has the line about, have you ever seen a baby pigeon? The point of like, hey, just because you don't see they exist, they're just not coming, they're just not out, and really destroying this analogy or metaphor, but you know what I'm saying. But I did like that sort of sentiment and that idea that kind of like challenges the non-believers like in the audience of like, oh yeah, you don't ever see baby pigeons.
Very true. Yeah.
Chris, what else did we like?
Let's see. I love the line John Lithgow goes when after he went to the library to get all the Bigfoot books, and he's looking through the books and he just yells, "These books make them look like monsters." And that's how, when I first got into Bigfoot, I was in 2nd grade and I went to my library and got all the books I could on Bigfoot. That's when I first... And they just portray him as a monster.
Sure.
Bigfoot was in all these books with, Wolfman and Dracula, and but, he's more natural than that.
Sure.
Yeah. Is it... How do I ask this question without... Like, is it... Because it's more like Bigfoot is just Bigfoot, whereas like the Dracula, like there's like drinks blood, maybe he turns into a bat werewolf. He is a man who turns into. There's a more violent stretch there, but also there's a lack of consistency, whereas Bigfoot is pretty consistent. Like the folklore or the idea of Bigfoot is probably easier to grasp because he's always Bigfoot. He's not becoming anything. He's not murderous or villainous or morphing into something else. So I wonder if that's what makes him maybe less monstrous or maybe more likable.
But I think that's how people can split their views on Bigfoot as to, some people say he's vicious and some people say he's not, because we don't know what he is or even if he exists. So there are people who can say, oh yes, Bigfoot absolutely drinks blood and eats human flesh, and then there's other people who say like, oh no, he's he's a vegetarian.
Yeah.
Which was so cute in that
movie.
Which was great. Be a vegetarian. I love that.
Yeah. But so to sidebar very quickly, what is your take really quick on that video that everyone in the world has seen of like the Bigfoot?
His name is Patty. Okay. Yeah, that's Patty the Bigfoot. That was in 1967 in Bluff Creek. That's the most famous film.
Has it been debunked?
It hasn't been debunked, but it hasn't been proved either. So it's kind of in this
so we're
middle
exactly
area.
Where we were in 1960.
Exactly, exact same place. And I think that's why Bigfoot's still big now, because nobody can disprove or prove him.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's the allure.
And is it
to
the
a lot
argument that now everyone has a camera on them at all times? Like, why isn't there another video or...
But then you get crazy theories of Bigfoot, like he's this paranormal entity that has something to do with can malfunction electronic devices around.
Oh, wow.
It's just there's a lot of insane stuff. Insane stuff. And it was so nice to just watch Harry and the Hendersons and just see Bigfoot as this easygoing vegetarian.
Sure.
With all these crazy, thoughts put aside.
Sweet.
Yeah, it was...
Has the emotions. And...
From all the research I've done for my podcast, this was a nice relaxing watch for me.
A little different.
Yeah. And with that, let's switch gears into talk about what could have been better, what we didn't, or what we flat out didn't like.
Well... I do feel like, I don't know if this is like really a criticism, but I do feel like he could have spent more time in the home. Maybe it's just because I feel like my memory, like I want my memory to be more correct, but I would have liked them to have formed a little bit more of a relationship. A little bit. But I understand. They wanted to bring him to, back to the wild and all that. So I get it. So maybe that's not so much a criticism. I will say the actress, the sister.
Oh.
So what's funny, you'll appreciate this,
okay,
Brian.
right.
And if you listen to our Family Ties podcast, you will appreciate it as well. She reminded me so much of Justine Bateman in those early Family Ties years where she did not know how to act.
Yeah.
We had this big conversation in the Family Ties episode. But she reminded me so much. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, it's just, I did not believe it. I didn't buy it.
There's also the challenge where she has to run up to this 8-foot monster and be like, hey, you ate my corsage, or like whatever. And it's like, for never in a million years. And it just laughs.
And
but
why
it's also
are the parents letting her do that?
No, exactly.
The parents are like, go ahead.
I wrote that,
right.
100%. I wrote that. It was like, this doesn't work on so many levels, and I would love to just blame her, the young actress. But I think she doesn't even play it right in the first place. Like, it just doesn't. None of that moment works.
Right.
But I had the family in the very beginning are a bunch of whiners too, and I feel like I think maybe with Harry, what that created. So, to the movie's defense, is that I believe he's in the house for about 47 minutes of a 1 hour and 50-minute movie. So I feel like what Harry created was a sort of like group project for them because they're all pretty isolated in the car. Like, no one really wants to be in that car with each other. Everyone's sort of on each other's nerves. Yeah. They meet Harry and they have to kind of work as a family to keep him a secret, prevent him from breaking things, not letting him hurt maybe the dog. It's like, so they work together and they sort of like forgot some of their differences. The movie is, maybe I'm giving the movie way too much credit, but they don't flat out necessarily call it out. But I think what they do is they realize, like, oh no, they're a family, and part of that family now is the inclusion of Harry, who is connecting them all in a different kind of way. And like, even with the little kid crying, although that goes in my negative pile. So when George is bringing Harry in the station wagon, he's ready to go. And the little boy starts crying. The mother is there, the sister is there to console him. Yeah. For some reason, George, John Lithgow's character, gets out of the car and has to help him because he's crying. What? And I was like, what is this?
And he says, stay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of strange. Aside from, obviously it was so that
giving
they could name him.
Huh?
So that they could actually have a name for him because
that was the name. That was the first.
But
name
also,
because he started to say the hairy man, and he got interrupted, and he's like, "Well, what was he? Since when does he have a name?"
But wait a second. But also, it was, I think, also to let Harry escape.
Well, obviously, yeah.
Well, yeah. I think that's the bigger... Christina, that is the bigger plot point.
Well, yes, it is the bigger plot point.
But I'm saying, like, couldn't they have thought of a better way to let Harry escape? Because, like, the little kid crying, it's like, how many parents does it take to console a little kid?
Yeah.
I don't know.
He was a whiner.
I mean, kids, I don't know. You mentioned Harry's facial expressions. I wrote down that sometimes Harry's smile I felt a little off. Was a little off-putting.
Off-putting, sure.
Like he had gas or something. Like it was a little like creepy smile.
Yeah.
I didn't really like
He's
that.
probably not used to smiling.
Maybe not. Also, I think again the name George. Melinda Dillon's character says George a million times too many. And the last, this is an overall one. Who is this movie like really for? And it goes back to how I felt then, because it's like there's guns, there's crazed civilians that are running amok with guns. There's swearing. The guy says bullshit. There's a psycho hunter on the loose. And I was like, so if this movie is like for kids, like a family movie, there's about 30 too many guns for a family movie.
For now,
that's fair.
Yeah,
that's
now.
fair.
I don't think it would have worked today, but I think back then it works.
In the late 80s, yeah.
Yeah, in the late 80s. I think it worked.
Yeah.
And that was the message, like guns are bad.
True.
Right? I mean, I think that's supposed to happen.
It was guns though that the police used to stop that cornered the hunter in the dumpster. Mm-hmm. So it's still a lot of guns. That would not work now at all.
Maybe the hunting is bad. Maybe that's the message.
So. Yeah.
See, I didn't necessarily get that anything is bad as the message. I got the underlying message throughout the entire film was nature is good.
Oh,
that's kind of what
nice positive.
Okay, I mean,
spin. Yes,
I like to watch movies to be positive, so I always try to throw a positive spin on them. But that's what I personally took from that. From the movie.
I like it.
The only other thing I have to say negative, besides the worst talk show host in history, the guy with the maniacal laugh. Oh. When he's like, "Hey, did you hear about this one?" Ha 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 ha. I was like,
he was supposed to be obnoxious, wasn't he?
But how does he have a show?
Yeah, that was horrible.
So then the only other thing was, does anyone know how to drive in this movie? So besides George,
it's really
the
cars. The cars.
Do you remember the cops though? And then when they're in the traffic, right? And Harry goes, does the siren, which is cute. But you see the cops driving in the rearview mirror. They are all over the road for no reason. This movie. I'm recommending this movie for
I would recommend this movie too.
I would. Yeah. You get your Harry's money's worth, but like there is the scene towards the end where the cops are in the high pursuit and they are all over the road for no reason, and I cannot believe neither of you and neither of you noticed that.
No, I didn't notice. You were clearly affected by the driving and throughout the whole movie.
Well, I mean, the driving was part of the problem throughout the whole movie. It was always a problem.
Well, it originally
in the very beginning,
he hit Harry with the car, so
terrible.
Yeah, if John Lithgow was a good driver, I don't think we'd have this movie.
That's right.
For sure.
That's good. That is true. Yeah. Anything else? What else? Chris, I just really quick for the listeners.
Yes.
Chris and I are armed with notes. Christina has I
have
three sentences.
4.
I have 4 pages. Is that true? Am I lying? 3 pages. 3 full pages of notes.
I did like the scene when he had hurt his hand and she's put in the iodine on it.
Yeah.
And he's he has pained look on his. I mean, I laughed at that. I laughed a lot more than I expected to laugh. I don't laugh in movies very often, but something about I like his expressions. I don't know, maybe.
Well, there's a couple of times where his smile specifically was a little off-putting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chris, any?
Well, I'm going to say I've seen countless Bigfoot films. Mm-hmm. Most of them are in the horror genre. There's a very few that I've seen that are family friendly.
Yeah.
But I say this is one of the better ones out there. I highly recommend this movie.
Wow.
This is a real fun one. Dare I say quintessential Bigfoot film.
Oh.
Wow. So what can you think of a really good scary Bigfoot movie?
There's one that came out in 2017 called Blood Rage.
Oh.
God.
Not a comedy.
Yeah.
It's it's a brutal one. I mean, it's Bigfoot with just destroying people.
Oh my god!
And it's funny because that movie compared to this movie, you have the 2 different views of Bigfoot. which is what I'm saying. And there's not many movies that have this Harry and the Hendersons sort of look at this beast. It's mostly, bloodthirsty creature.
Sure.
There's another one similar to Harry and the Hendersons that Meatloaf starred in. It's a really good one. It's called My Pet Yeti.
Oh my gosh!
My Pet Yeti, and I've only seen it on VHS. It's very hard to find, but it's a Harry and the Hendersons feel.
Meatloaf. You don't hear that very often.
He plays the Bigfoot hunter. It's fun. It's good stuff.
Intentionally funny, or just like, oh god.
I'm sorry. To Catch a Yeti. That's what it's called. Okay. To Catch a Yeti. Yes. And it's another family-friendly film, kind of, that's not really, as far as the guns and the swearing goes, similar to Harry and the Hendersons. But Harry and the Hendersons, I really enjoyed this movie. I really did.
Cool.
Now, is there, just a quick question about Bigfoot, is there a specific place that he is more likely to be seen?
Actually, yes, the Pacific Northwest.
Oh, okay.
Which works out well that this took place in Seattle.
Yeah.
Because around that area, that's where most of the sightings in the United States take place.
I wonder if they did that on purpose.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure they must have.
Yeah.
They must have.
Yeah, have to have done some research.
Bluff Creek, where we were talking about the most famous video on Bigfoot, that took place in Northern California.
Oh, okay.
So, still around that same area.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Very good. So now might be a good time to take a break.
Yeah.
And we'll be right back.
Hey there, it's Brian and Christina. We just wanted to take this break to thank you for listening to Old Roommates, the only podcast that revisits pop culture through a middle-aged lens. Please subscribe to Old Roommates on iTunes, Spotify, and wherever you listen to podcasts. And give us a rating or review while you're there.
And if you have any questions, comments, or observations, shoot us an email at oldroommatespod@gmail.com. And follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Old Roommates. Thanks for listening, and now, back to the show.
And we're back, talking about Harry and the Hendersons. What are our final thoughts, guys?
My final thoughts are, like I said earlier, I actually did appreciate the movie more now than I did then. I think it's a great... it's tough, though. I think because of the gun... It's not even a violent movie, but there's so many guns in this movie. And even if part of the message is hunting is wrong, I don't know if today's family is if they're going to welcome this movie into this as a family film. There I think are a lot of guns. As much as I enjoyed the movie now, it does stick out to me.
Right. Especially even at the beginning of the movie, I feel like it was even more so, where he's teaching his son, how to shoot and everything. And I don't think you have to go in with an open mind, and you have to go into the movie thinking, okay, this was made in the 80s, and just be a little bit less political, I guess. I don't know.
Sure, yeah.
Just take it for what it is. It's a little comedy from the 80s.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. You can't really get too heavy into the political end of it.
Yeah. Chris, how about you?
If you're a fan of Bigfoot, see this film.
And Shorty, how about you?
Apparently, Shorty is a big fan of Bigfoot.
Well, yeah. My cat is old, and he has, a lot of issues. So we're gonna find a way to get him into another room. And so now I think it is time for the big question. Just have this question. So we are going to do an F, marry, kill.
Yes.
And we're going to really mix it up. Chris, earlier you mentioned Dracula and werewolves and Bigfoots. The plural of Bigfoot is Bigfoots, not big feet.
Correct. Bigfoots, yes.
Sounds so wrong.
That's the accepted terminology, Bigfoots, yeah.
So we're going to use those. We're going to use, F, marry, kill, Bigfoot, Dracula, werewolf, and go. We're all doing this. Did you already answer, Chris?
Oh, yes, I did. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Yeah. And
this wasn't too difficult for me. I've given this much thought. In my
I'm
life.
done.
No,
That's Once I. Well, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
All right. Chris? Why don't you start?
Okay,
With
I will start.
With reasonings.
Absolutely, yes. All right, so I would F Bigfoot because he's my guy.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I think I'd be if I first saw him, I think I'd be so overwhelmed with emotions. That would be my first go-to. I mean, and he looks real cuddly. He looks very cuddly.
Does the cuddly.
I would marry Dracula.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's a count after all, so all his riches and get to live in a castle.
Good point.
Okay.
Oh,
And
No
I was
changing your
not
answer.
considering that. Oh boy.
And so that leaves me with killing off Werewolf.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think that's for the best. I don't want to have to go by his schedule of when he's going to be a man, when he's going to be a beast.
Yeah.
Like that's just too much. So get him out of the picture.
Good answers. Good answers. So I chose. I would like to F Dracula, and mostly because I just feel like vampires in general are very seductive. There's lots of movies about that and shows like True Blood, and they're like sexy. I think that would be like kind of a fun thing. I would marry Bigfoot. And I think a lot of it is because of like that cuddly creature-esque part of it. And let's face it, later in years, many husbands sort of turn into kind of a Bigfoot anyway.
Wow, yeah.
So, I mean, I'm sure my husband won't, but, it just sort of happens with the easy chair. I could just see like a Bigfoot just sitting in my living room being my husband. And so that would leave killing the werewolf. And I chose that mostly because I feel like werewolves are very unpredictable.
Yes.
I don't need that unpredictability in my life.
Yeah,
I'm at a point
yeah.
in my life where I like to be like the predictability of it.
And also, how about like, oh honey, I ripped my shirt again, or my pants.
Yeah.
The money
right?
it would take to house that. Yeah.
It's just you just have to understand his urges.
Well, and who's to say he's not going to just like leave in the middle of the night and be like,
That's-
oh, I was a werewolf last night.
And I
like,
killed
really?
someone. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to clean up that mess.
So, thank you, Christina, for your thoughtful thoughts. I agreed completely with Chris. I have the same answer. We matched.
Interesting.
Yeah, because I
With
said
the same reasoning?
Bigfoot. I'm going to be honest. I like big guys. I like tall. The shoulders. I think he had a good body. And he did. Well, I don't know. He's hairy, but he's And Dracula, Mary. Yes, I didn't consider that he's also a count, but I feel like once he bites me, whatever, and I become whatever.
Oh, that's right. You would turn into
It's
that.
it's like, well, the damage is
done.
done. We're together forever. Like vampires and Dracula, they're always about eternity, and that's what marriage is.
So you're
werewolves-
feeling like your marriage is like an eternity.
Well, no, it
sounds
should. It's supposed to be
Real positive.
What? Why is an eternity bad, Christina?
It seems the way you said it. It seems like it's an eternity.
Chris.
I mean, I understand eternity.
Eternity is a beautiful thing. It's an old fragrance. In Werewolf Kill, I mean, for reasons we've all already
Poor
said.
werewolf.
That was
Never stood a chance.
And with that was another exciting episode of Old Roommates, the only podcast that revisits pop culture through a middle-aged lens. We want to thank our special guest today, Chris, and your podcast is Alien Zoo.
Yes, Alien Zoo. You can find it on iTunes and Stitcher. It's going to be on soon, and bi-weekly episodes. Check it out.
Fantastic.
It's great. And
Thanks for having me. Yes.
There's a Bigfoot episode already out there.
I'm working on one.
Oh,
That's going to be a long one. That's going to be a real long episode.
Great. Well, we're looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having
Really
me. I had a lot of
appreciate
fun.
it. And that's it for us
Yeah.
for another episode of Old Roommates.
Thanks for listening. Please subscribe to Old Roommates on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and wherever you listen to podcasts. And give us a rating or review while you're there. And if you have an idea for the show, a suggestion, comment, email us at oldroommatespod@gmail.com.
And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Old Roommates. This is Christina.
And this is Brian.
Thanks again for listening. Till next time.